All right, let's welcome into the show a great guest. He covers the NFL for the Boston Globe, Ben Volin. Ben, it is great to have you, man. It's a good time to be a Patriots fan, right? Colin Cowherd loves them. I said earlier in the show, Ben, I think they're a playoff team this year. That may be a bridge too far, but you got a good coach in Mr. Vrabel, huh?
You know what? Things are looking a lot brighter in Foxborough these days. They've got, I think, a very quality coach in Mike Vrabel and offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. I think that was a great hire. They've got a young quarterback in Drake Maye. They've won the offseason, spending all this money on free agents, Milton Williams, Stephon Diggs, Harold Landry. The arrow is definitely pointing up in Foxborough, and it's not crazy to predict them as a playoff team. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a real contender, but if the Commanders can do it in 1 year, if the Minnesota Vikings can go from last place to the playoffs, why can't the Patriots go 9-8 or 10-7 and sneak into the playoffs next year? I think the expectations are definitely a lot higher in Foxborough than they were in the past.
So I don't want to go back to last year too much because I'm sure it was a ghastly time for you covering the team. They were obviously very bad, but did they need to just take out a lot of guys who weren't meant for that locker room, weren't a good fit, and Vrabel's now reshaping the roster in his vision?
Yeah, I don't think the issue was like a spoiled locker room. That I don't think attitude was the reason. I think it was talent. This is a team that for the last 4 to 5 years under Bill Belichick really struggled to draft, and it all came to a head the last year or two where they just didn't have much veteran talent. Back in 2021, they had to go out and overpay for several free agents like Hunter Henry, Matthew Judon. That's a clear reflection of poor drafting. And same thing this offseason with all the money that the Patriots have spent. I mean, last year they had the worst offensive line, the worst group of receivers. Drake Maye was playing with nothing last year. So I wouldn't say that it was like a bad attitude or they had to, get rid of some rotten apples in the locker room. They just need to add talent. And if you're Gerard Mayo, I think you're wondering, well, where was this free agency spending last year? The Patriots didn't really bring in many top guys from the outside last year. And I think if you're Gerard Mayo, it's like, well, it's nice that Mike Vrabel can get all this talent, but where was this talent for me last year?
Yeah. I think I saw a stat, Ben, that the Patriots had the most different starting offensive line combinations in the league. That might have been from you or someone, but like they couldn't figure it out. Have they done enough in free agency to solidify the O-line, or do you think they still stick with offensive line at 4 in the draft?
No, I mean, offensive line is still definitely a big question, and left tackle is the one glaring hole that they didn't fill in free agency. They got a receiver in Stephon Diggs. They got a lot of help on defense, a cornerback, Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, defensive tackle, Robert Spillane, linebacker. One hole they didn't fill was left tackle. They brought in Morgan Moses, the 34-year-old veteran from the Jets. He'll be on the right side, but the Patriots still definitely need to find an answer at left tackle. It's an interesting decision they face at number 4. There's not like a guaranteed sure thing left tackle prospect like Joe Alt last year who went to the Chargers. Will Campbell from LSU is an excellent football player, a top prospect, maybe the best lineman in the draft, but there is some concern about his size and his measurables. The whole arm length thing.
Yeah.
Does he have the arm length to be a left tackle in the NFL? And I think that's what the Patriots are facing right now. Is he the guy they want to take it for? Or is that a little high for a guy who you're not quite sure is going to be a left tackle and might ultimately have to play guard in the NFL? But, protecting Drake Maye is the number one goal for the Patriots this year. And I don't know if they've done enough. Bringing in Morgan Moses and center Garrett Bradbury from Minnesota, those are good moves. But, adding a left tackle, getting Will Campbell in the draft will look good on paper, but then there will be questions, of course, if he can actually play the position in the NFL.
So let's just assume that Cam Ward goes 1, Travis Hunter 2, and Abdul Carter 3. Although I find it hard to believe the Giants would take another defensive lineman, but who knows? If the Patriots don't go offensive tackle, do you have a wild card? Is Ashton Genty in play? Is that too crazy? Is there Tyler Warren, the tight end, seems a little rich? 4 seems to be a kind of a tough spot here for the Patriots.
It is a tough spot for the Patriots, who are, I think, if you're sitting there at 4, you're praying that Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter falls to you and makes it a very easy decision. And really, it highlights just how awful that Week 18 win was for the Patriots over the Bills last year when Joe Milton came in and won the game. drop them from number 1 to 4. If they were sitting at number 1 right now, they could trade that pick to Tennessee or Cleveland, get a nice haul, and still feel good about getting Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Now they're kind of in purgatory with that 4th pick. If they decide Will Campbell's not their guy, there's another offensive tackle, Armand Membu from Missouri. He looks the part, but he's only been a right tackle, and moving him to the left side is a little bit of a projection. And then otherwise, I think the Patriots go pass rusher. You can never have enough of those guys. Vrabel seems to want guys who can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And the guy that's gaining some buzz is Jalen Walker from University of Georgia. Just a freak of an athlete, can play on the line of scrimmage, can play off the ball. You can do a lot of different things with him. He'd be, I think, a tremendous piece in the Patriots defense. You know, the one issue is this draft is stacked with pass rushers. There's going to be almost maybe 20 guys in the top 3 or so rounds to go. So do you necessarily need to take a pass rusher at number 4 when there are fewer left tackles? There are fewer tight ends available. I would love for them to get Warren from Penn State. Ashton Genty from Boise State, I don't think they go there. I don't think that's a team that's ready to take a running back with number 4, but they do need playmakers on offense. That's been the Patriots' biggest issue the last 2 years is they finished 31st and 30th in scoring. They need playmakers. So Ashton Genty would be fun. He'd be a controversial pick. I don't see them making it. I think it's going to be either Will Campbell, Armand Membu, one of the tackles, or Jalen Walker, probably the pass rush.
One more on the Patriots. You know, Cowherd really likes this team this year. He started to convince me, like, hey, man, there's something there. Obviously, they're going to be better than the Jets and Justin Fields at quarterback. Can they be better than the Miami Dolphins is the question. Is that a realistic expectation? Let's assume Tyreek Hill's playing for the Dolphins this season, of course.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's very realistic that the Patriots could finish second in the division this year. Not a fan of what the Dolphins have done. I think this is a team that needs a hard reset, but they have stood by their coach, their quarterback, and their GM. I don't know. The Dolphins, to me, feel like a team that is about to fall apart in 2025. They've really lacked discipline the last few years, haven't been able to get over that hump, and then have really struggled in high leverage situations, bad weather, important games, December, playoff teams. I'm not a big fan of where the Dolphins are headed. And I think that, like I said, the arrow is definitely pointing up for the Patriots. I think Mike Vrabel is going to be an excellent coach for them, really instilling an attitude and a culture that's been missing the last few years. They've already increased their talent. You know, we'll see what Stephon Diggs can give them. The Patriots put a lot of protection in that contract in case he's not quite the same player coming back from that ACL. But Drake Maye in year 2, he's going to have a lot more talent around him. The defense should be better. And I just think the coaching with Vrabel and Josh McDaniels is going to be a lot better than what Drake Maye and the Patriots got last year. So I definitely think that they can finish second in that division and compete for a wild card.
All right, one more on the Patriots. I forgot. So Vrabel, historically, gamblers love him because he does more with less, seemingly, than any coach in like the last 15 years. He's a great, great schemer and a mastermind and a leader. I'm just curious, what are your early impressions with him? Will the Patriots look radically different as an offensive team next year?
Well, yes, but just because, you know, last year's offense was radically different for them under Alex Van Pelt, more of the West Coast scheme that he brought from Green Bay. Now they're going back to the Josh McDaniels offense, which everyone around here is very familiar with over the last 20 years. So it's going to be different. It's not going to be like Tom Brady running the show. But Josh McDaniels has been very adaptable. He's worked with Cam Newton, Mac Jones, Matt Castle. So I expect Josh McDaniels and his staff to put Drake Maye in a position to succeed. And I think Drake Maye, to me, that's a great coach for him, having McDaniels kind of tutor him. And I think Drake Maye is definitely on the up and up. You know, with Vrabel in Tennessee, you know, the people down there will like to point out that with the more power he got with the team, the kind of the worse they did. And then once he lost Arthur Smith, his offensive coordinator, that's when Tannehill and the rest of the offense didn't start doing as well. But Vrabel, to me, is a terrific motivator, and he's a great leader. He's exactly what this program needs, a guy who's been there and done that. He's won Coach of the Year. He's won playoff games. He came into Foxborough and won a playoff game and beat Tom Brady. He's got confidence. He was a player. He won as a player. Like, he's everything, with all due respect to Gerard Mayo. Vrabel brings a lot more to the table than Mayo did last year as far as leadership. And I know things didn't end well for Vrabel in Tennessee, but I think there's something to be said for having a guy who has made some mistakes and is willing to learn from them. And I definitely see that from Vrabel. Every time I've heard him speak so far, 3 or 4 times in the offseason, you know, you just listen to him, you're like, man, this is the perfect guy for this team in this situation. And I really do like the way that he's got the program headed.
All right, two real quick ones. Big picture, AFC. I made a case earlier that the Chiefs will regress this season. I have not gone online to see how bad people hate me for it. But, Ben, I mean, 11-0 in one-score games. We know historically that flips year to year. And they haven't done anything to help their roster this offseason. They picked up a backup left tackle from the Niners, hoping that he will salvage their offensive line. Traded away Tooney. Listen, man, you can't stay on top forever in the NFL. That's the reason we have this salary cap. The league is structured for parity. Do you see the Chiefs regressing? They ain't winning 15 games. We know that, right?
Well, I mean, I like everything you're saying here, J-Mac. It makes a lot of sense. And I think with most teams, what you're saying would be the case, that the Chiefs would take a step back this year. Maybe they'll be a 10-7 team. You know, you didn't get Patrick Mahomes much help. What are you doing with the offensive line? But this is the Chiefs, and it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I know that's not the most scientific analysis, but I would never count these guys out. And they're bringing Kelsey back for another year. There's still plenty of time before they kick the ball off in September. There are still moves to be made, whether it's finding another receiver or, you know, bolstering the offensive line. The draft is coming up. I think the Chiefs, they're not just sitting on their hands this offseason. They're trying to make their roster better and trying to specifically address their offensive line. So, maybe you're right in that they're not going to win 15 games and go 15-2. But that said, I'm never counting out Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. These guys are too good and too savvy and have won too many games for them not to have things figured out by the fall.
All right, so last one. So we did a thing on Bill Belichick earlier, and Alex was like, listen, he sounds like a new person. I don't know how closely you've paid attention to what's happening in North Carolina. I know Bill's social life has picked up certainly considerably. I'm just curious. You spent so many years around this guy. Based on what you've seen and read and heard, do you feel like it's a totally new Bill Belichick?
No, I think it's a Bill Belichick who's trying to sell himself a little bit. You know, he's on social media now, and he's very prominent with his young girlfriend out there. I just think now that he's been fired from the Patriots, he's trying to rehab his image a little bit and coming across as, you know, your soft grandpa and your fun grandpa and that kind of thing. But he's still the same old Bill Belichick, and I guarantee you those players aren't going to love his practices this August down at UNC, where there are fewer practice restrictions at college than there are in the NFL. So I don't think he's going to be too changed in that respect. But when you're fired, you know, your ego's bruised a little bit. I think he's just out there trying to show the world that he's not just some old curmudgeon, that he still has some magic left up his sleeve. You know, we'll see how he does down at UNC. That it's definitely, he's going to do good things for that program, but man, it's UNC. He still has a lot of work to do at a place like that.
Great stuff. Ben Volin, Boston Globe NFL reporter. Great stuff as always, Ben, and good luck with the draft, the offseason. It's going to be a fun summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, J-Mac.
Ben, that was great stuff.